Yo, how's it going, people? There's so many Psytrance tracks that have a very similar or even identical percussion lines. It's probably why a lot of people think the Psytrance is becoming more and more generic. It's just that a lot of artists are basically doing the same thing. So in this video, I want to show you a technique that I invented that will help you make creative percussion loops for your tracks. All you need is a one-shot sample and a delay plugin. I will even give you a free sample pack with one-shot samples so you can practice this yourselves. So let me show you the 5-step process to make this. So today I'll be working on this beat. So step number 1, we need a one-shot sample. So as I promised, a free sample pack that have all of these filthy sounds. Let's go with number 9, because it sounds really filthy, and I know that you have a filthy mind. Let's sort out this channel. And step number 2, we need a delay plugin. For the purpose of this tutorial, we will just use a preset, but you can use any delay plugin and you can modify it in any way you want. So let's go to echoes. I did prepare in advance, so I know that the bit tipsy works quite well. Sounds like this. Pretty cool. Let's record that into audio. Let's look for another one. Maybe this one. Sounding pretty cool. Let's take different delay plugin. Maybe timeless. It has so many presets, but my favorite category is long. Let's go with this one. Why not? Let's record that into audio as well. So now we have the same percussion with 3 different delays. So we have a lot of intricate rhythms here, so the next thing we need to do is start chopping them. So let me explain something. In the title it says infinite. The reason this is infinite is because you all have hundreds of percussion loops, and I'm even giving you a sample pack for free. And you all have a bunch of delay plugins that can produce many different intricate rhythms. So you can imagine the amount of different rhythms that you can get from just one sample. Let's start chopping this around. So maybe let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of that. Let's take something like this. I always like to start with a symmetric pattern, so just looping it every bar. Let's mute these two. Let's have a listen. Okay. All right. What do we have here? Let's loop this like this and copy this and every 2 bars. So alright, we have one more where we could put it like this and like this. Let's have a listen. This is sounding cool, far from finished, far from sounding polished. Let me play a little bit with the rhythm and then I'll come back in a minute. Okay, so I came up with this rhythm, which I'm quite happy with, but this needs a lot of mixing. This is a rhythm I would not manage to come up with if I had to make this myself. This is only possible with this technique using a sample and a delay plugin. This is why it's infinite. But there's a lot of mixing that we need to do here because some of the percussion sounds really loud and some really quiet. And there's also a lot of low end and filth in this sound. So let's clean it up a little bit to begin with, and then we will get the louder sounds closer to the quieter ones. Let's start with putting them all in a group. I'll solo this group and I will load an EQ. So an EQ like this will not do it because there's a lot of information here. Things are panning from side to side, there's a little bit of a reverb, so we have to use mid-side EQ. So in order to do that, let's grab a utility plugin, an EQ plugin. Let's put them both in a rack so you can then save it for later. If you right click on where it says width, you can change this to mid-side mode. So now I can EQ the mids, I can just listen to the mids. Or I can just listen to the sides. Basically all the reverbs and the wider sounds, everything that sounds a little bit differently on each monitor. Anything on the mid is anything that is mono. whatever comes exactly the same from both monitors. So then let's change the mode of the EQ to mid-side, and we will start by EQing the mid. So at the moment we're only listening to the mid. Let's start by reducing the low frequencies, we don't need any of them. I'll create a bell like that, and let's scan through the frequency spectrum to get rid of all the harsher and dirtier parts of the sound. Like this. Sounds a little bit better. This is when the EQ is off. And on. Now let's listen to the sides, and then click here, instead of mid, change it to side. Let's create a low cut. We don't need any of that. And also notice that in the side and the mid, it's a little bit different. It's not quite the same. That's why this technique is important, so you can listen to the mid and the side and EQ that separately. Let's put it back to 0, so we're listening to the mid and the side together. This is when the EQ is on. Let's turn it off. And back on. Make sure that you go and save this track into your library so you can use it for later. I use this on almost any sound. So next I want to get the louder sound sounding closer to the quieter sounds. You can do that with a compressor. I prefer to do that with a clipper. If you're using Ableton, there is a free Max for Live plugin called Clipper Me. It's really simple. It literally just has one knob, and you will understand exactly what it does as I reduce it. Actually, you can just see here what it does. Let's turn it off. Notice there's really loud peaks. Let's turn it back on. Nice. So it's sounding much more balanced now. Let's have a listen a little bit in context. Next is make this a little bit more tighter, making it a little bit more choppier. So there is a really cool plugin called Extractor, and this is what it does. Let's turn it off. The next thing I want to do is let the offbeat hat breathe a little bit more. So let's carve out some space in the loop we just created, so the offbeat hat has more space. We can do that with a glue compressor. Click on this triangle, toggle sidechain, and then set the input from the offbeat hat. Let's take the attack all the way down, the release all the way down, and let's start reducing the threshold. Notice this, every time the hat is playing, the loop is reducing in volume. Let's do the same thing for the kick. But for the kick, I don't want the entire loop to duck. I only want the frequencies of the kick to duck, so it's much more transparent. So there's a plugin called Sonic Scoop. Let's set the input from the kick. Let's take the attack down, and you will see exactly what is being attenuated from the loop we just created. So go grab the free sample pack, grab a delay plugin, record that to audio, start chopping, arranging, a little bit of mixing, and you have a percussion loop that no one has ever made before. Now if you want to learn how to make the snare that was playing at this track, go watch this video next. It's coming with a free workshop. So go grab it, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.